People should support Playmaking for Girls because it's an amazing program. It's exposing these youth to things that they should have access to, but they don't have access to. It's giving them opportunities to think outside the box and to remove themselves from the box that life has probably told them that they live in.
The girls that are incarcerated in the youth detention centers, I think everybody thinks that they've all done a horrible, bad, dark crime. Some have, but there is a percentage that to me is the saddest. These girls that from a very, very early age were put into DFACs because their family abandoned them.
I went into the RYDC because I believe it was shoplifting, and also I ran away a couple of times.
A lot of these young ladies have had to, or have decided subconsciously, to ostracize themselves as a way of protecting themselves. And so then to let their guard down and to be vulnerable and to let other people hear what they really think and what they really feel, I think is hard.
I think the go-to mechanism has become getting rid of young people who seem to be causing trouble, because these young people could be pulling down grades, they could be pulling down tests, and I think infractions that used to be worthy of dialogue with a principal, with a parent, are now being handled by police officers. And so the failing to me comes at a larger level in terms of policies.
And then they're in the process, in the system. This school to prison pipeline that we're finding, it's really hard to get out.
One of the difficulties is that they have so many forces outside of themselves that they have no control over. Be it home environment, school environment, the neighborhood, the community, that all seem to bear down and beat on them.
Well, I was placed into a group home. Most girls, they don't have the opportunity to talk to someone when something happens tragic in their life, or it doesn't have to be tragic. They don't have anybody to talk to, and they don't have really many options to release the stress that they have on a day-to-day basis. And I did it in a form of a poem that was telling my life, the reason why I was there, and how various people in my life that are supposed to have been there for me, they kind of took advantage of that.
Most girls and women who are in detention centers and jails have reported experiences with sexual abuse that have largely gone unnoticed, or they haven't received proper counseling or therapy. Sometimes their families don't have the resources, so they oftentimes are entering the system in a place where they haven't been able to work through so many of the other issues that have potentially led to them being there in the first place. One of the things that happens is that you have just layers and layers of wounds that have not been healed.
A lot of people think that they make the wrong choices repeatedly because they don't have it together, or they're not smart, or they're not like in control emotionally or whatever, but I think that's not the case. I just think that they don't have access to the resources to help them make better choices.
I didn't have no mentors, no role models, just me. And yes, I do believe that that's why I got in a lot of trouble before.
I was told by someone in the administration of the youth detention centers in the state of Georgia that so many people don't want to work with the girls. It's too much work. They're too emotional. There's so much drama, he said. There's just drama, and the boys are so much easier to work with. That told me we need more programming for these girls. These girls need more programming. They are not thriving.
I think there is, you know, a need that we all have as human beings to be heard, to be seen. And I think for these girls, that's probably something that's really been missing in their lives.
I believe that when you turn their minds around about themselves, it changes their minds about the world.
So I think the act of one teacher sitting with them as they express themselves creatively, a lot of times the stories are connected to things they've lived through or the life they're living. So I think something about just being a witness to that and affirming them hopefully helps to start generate a feeling of worth within them.
Even in juvenile courts, juveniles are not allowed to speak. People are talking about them, people are speaking on their behalf, but they're not able to speak. So this is one of the few places that these young girls have an opportunity to tell their stories. They are telling their stories sometimes to their parents. Perhaps their parents didn't understand their perspective. They are telling the stories to the junior correctional officers and the facilities that have incarcerated, part of their incarceration experience. This is an opportunity for them to build dialogue and create characters and have these characters talk to each other and work through issues that sometimes weren't worked through initially but need to be worked through for these girls to think about what's next in their lives.
Kids? I like kids. I want to get married. Whoa! I'm even not ready for that yet. We're young. We have our whole lives ahead of us.
We had never gone into detention centers and worked. And so we looked around and we found a great partner. We found Holistic Stress Control Institute, who does a lot of programs in detention centers and in prisons. And we said, hey, we've got this really great idea for a way to work with girls. Do you have any programs for girls? And at that time, there were very few programs for girls out there because people weren't really catching on or admitting the fact that there were a lot of girls coming into the system. They really wanted to think about it as, oh, it's mostly boys who are committing these crimes and who are getting into these positions. So, so we worked with Holistic and we went into a detention center. And we had, up till that point, we'd been doing this project called the 24-hour plays, which is where we got a group of artists together and they wrote, rehearsed, and performed 8 plays in the period of 24 hours. And there was a performance at the end of the 2 days. And so we had this really great structure and we thought, well, what about if we go into the detention center, we bring in a group of women, and we work with the girls and we pair them up and we have them write short plays, and then the next day rehearse them and then do the performance. And it was kind of audacious and crazy at first because these girls, for the most part, had never heard of a play, they'd never seen a play, they didn't know anything about plays, and we were going in and saying, write a play and then perform it. And they didn't know any of the skills needed or anything about that. So, so we went in and we did this 2-day workshop, and it was remarkable. And the way that the girls responded was incredible. The way that our teachers felt after going through this process was amazing. And the facility said, you have to come back, you have to do it again, you have to do it again. And we all realized right away that this was something we just had to build into our programming and do a lot more of.
In all of our Playmaking for Girls workshops, we start with exercises, physical, emotional connection, right? And then, like if they're writing, we do this brainstorming where they don't even realize that they've started writing. We've kind of come in through the back door and they've already started writing. So it's this natural flow into telling their stories.
A lot of like abuse that you're exposed to that you shouldn't be exposed to, a lot of violence, and just, it's a lot of stuff. So having the opportunity to take that stuff, put it on paper, and say, hey, wait a minute. This doesn't have to be real life. This can be fictional. Like, this does not have to define my life as a story.
There's a lovely Nigerian novelist, Chimamanda Adichie, who talks about the danger of a single story. And one of the things that she argues is that when we typecast, label people, when we make a decision about who a person is, sometimes that is who they become because we have labeled them and limited them by our labels, those of us who sit in places of privilege and power.
Sometimes I feel like I'm nothing. Hello? Hello? This is Earth. I was just calling to tell you you should cure yourself and you're ugly and nobody will ever love you. God don't like ugly.
All the stories they write come from different places. Some might be their actual stories. Some might be a story that their friend had experienced. Some might be a story that happened in their neighborhood. But every story has an element of truth.
And some of the girls I do hang around, that's like when we have this 1 week together, I know half of the stories are happening to them because sometimes they don't want to do the stories because they don't want to relive that. So when they do it, it's like they're embracing their fears and they're coming up and stepping up to a better place, and like they're becoming more calm.
And so Adichie has this call for thinking about multiple stories and considering the multiple stories of people. I think she's really helped me think about the work that we do with young people. Our young people are more than their socioeconomic status. They are more than their ethnic and race designations on a piece of paper.
We're in a room full of different girls who came from different places, and they got different backgrounds and different things going on in their life. So all that energy inside one room, inside one space, it was kind of challenging at first, but once you get to know a person and know what they've been through and what they're going through now, then you'll understand them more and why they do have attitudes and why they do, you know, interact with females the way they do.
A lot of exercises we do are ensemble building. Like when we're passing the clap around the circle, that's an experience of working together.
Many of the girls have experienced the world of no. So they've heard no on a lot of different levels. And so the yes and philosophy invites girls to really be engaged in a more inquiry-driven kind of curriculum. So it's, yes, I understand what you're saying, and what else can you add to that?
My favorite part about the summer program is we put them on a bus the day after the public performance for like 250 people, and we bus them back to 2 facilities. They go back in, but this time in through the front door, and they do the plays, the performance, for girls that are currently incarcerated. The idea is, this has touched you, this has changed you in some way. Now, it's our responsibility to use it to touch someone else. So we work with the girls while they're in trouble in the detention center, 2 days, shortly after they get out, in the summer program for a week. And we work with them, hopefully before they get into trouble, in the middle school, for 8 weeks.
We also do other satellite workshops for other group homes and specialty workshops. So if anybody's interested in helping any young teen girls find their voices through the arts, please call us.
I just think, how incredible would it be? You know, these girls who have faced this adversity, made bad mistakes maybe, or maybe been thrown in there for something they didn't do, but that's huge at a young age. And to have overcome that, if we can empower them after that or in the midst of that, think about what kind of leaders they could be.